In today's video, I want to show you two cool tricks that are related to the input field in Claude Code. One is prompt stashing and the other one is prompt history search. Let's start with prompt stashing. Here I am in my Claude Code Scratchpad folder, and in the input field I currently have a prompt that asks for a README file. However, I want to ask first if I'm actually in a Git repository. So what I can do now, instead of sending that prompt, I can press Ctrl S to stash that prompt. And that means the prompt is currently in some stash, and I can later get this prompt. And in the meantime, I can ask Claude Code something else. So for example, are we currently in a Git repo? And once I press Enter after this question, the prompt that we stashed is back in my prompt. So it's basically a technology to quickly put something aside and then it will come back. If something is in the stash and you want to pull it out without sending a prompt, you can just press Ctrl S again and it will jump back into your prompt. The cool thing about stashing is that it not only saves the text, but also the cursor position, if that's something that it's important to you, and images that you used in the prompt. Let me show this to you. So let's enhance the prompt a little bit and say something like, please copy this image into an assets folder and use it as the heading of the README file. And then I will pull in the link to some image. So if I press Ctrl S now, while in Claude Code, then this prompt is stashed. And if I press Ctrl S again, you see that the image is still there. So that's pretty cool. If I click somewhere in the prompt, so the cursor is not on the end anymore, and I stash the prompt and I come back, you see that the cursor is there. So it's like this nice little thing where you can put something aside for a moment and then pull it back. So there are two gotchas with this stashing command. If you have something stashed already and then you type something in the prompt and you press Ctrl S again, you're not replacing the current prompt with the stashed prompt, but you're basically replacing the stash with what you have in your input field. And that makes it a little bit flimsy using the stash. The other part is, if you are clearing your session, you're also clearing the stash. So that means it will be gone. The same thing is for closing Claude Code. Once you close Claude Code, you're also deleting the stash. So that's why I want to show you a second trick, and that is working with Claude Code's prompt history, which enables you to work more persistently with prompts that you used before or that you want to save for a moment. So we're back in the terminal with Claude Code and the README file was created. So what I want to do now is I want to ask about the content of the README file. And now comes a little bit of a flimsy part. So you need to press Enter in order to send the prompt and then wait a moment and then press Ctrl C to cancel the procedure, because then this prompt is written into the history and you can access it in a moment. So let's press Enter. And then before it really goes into action, you interrupt the process. So now this prompt is in the history and you can use the arrow up keys to traverse through the history in order to get these prompts. For example, what is the content of the README file now is saved there. The arrow up and arrow down key are nice to quickly jump to a prompt that you used a moment ago, but there is an even better way in order to access the history of your prompts. So let's clear the prompt, and now if you are pressing Ctrl R, you are jumping into the prompt history. And now you can use the arrow up and arrow down keys to look for the prompts that you were just using. And once a prompt is selected, you can see the bigger prompt in the field below. And you can even use the filter history field by looking for a certain word. If you're pressing Ctrl S while you're in this history search, you're traversing through everywhere, session, and project. So that way you can filter down the search scope. Unfortunately, the search prompts window also has a little gotcha, and that is that it only works when you're in TUI full screen mode. In one of my former videos, I showed you that you can type TUI and then full screen in order to go into the full screen mode for Claude Code. That's the mode I'm in right now. But by default, you might be in the default mode. So let's switch for a moment. And if you are in the default mode and you're typing Ctrl R to search the history, you see that the prompt now looks a little bit different and the window is not as rich as it is in the full screen mode, but you just have this little search prompts bit down here where you can type something in. So now I can type Git and it searches the prompts. However, it just gives me this little preview. So let's press Escape again to get out of it and Control C to clear the prompt. So if you really want to leverage the search prompt, you need to make sure to be in a TUI full screen mode, which I recommend to be in anyway. All right, let's recap. If you are in your input field in Claude Code and you typed a prompt and you want to stash this prompt, that means saving this prompt for the immediate use in a moment, you can type Command S in order to stash it. And then once you are in an empty prompt and you are typing Command S again, you are unstashing that command. The important bit here to remember is that if you have something in your prompt and press Command S, even if you already have something in your stash, you're replacing that stash. So be careful when you are using Control S that you are only unstashing it if your prompt is empty at that moment. The other command that I was showing you is Control R. And with Control R, you can search the history of all the prompts that were ever used in Claude Code. If you are pressing Control S while you're in the search history prompt, you are traversing through the search everywhere search, the search for the current project, or just searching the current session. So while you're in the search history, you can press Ctrl S to traverse through them and filter your prompt history search. Once you have found the prompt that you want, you can then press Enter, and this prompt will come back into your input field. As mentioned a moment ago, make sure that you're using the /TUI full screen mode as your mode in Claude Code in order to have this rich prompt history view. And that's it for today. See you next time.